So, you've been told you have herpes. Maybe it was during a routine STI test, or perhaps you went in because something just didn't feel right down there. Now you're staring at the ceiling, your dating life is over, and nobody will ever want you again because of this new diagnosis. So, let me stop you right there. Please take a deep breath. I'm Dr. Emmanuel Aguh, the Whizdoc, and I've sat across from lots of patients who've had this exact moment when they found out their diagnosis of herpes. However, it could also apply to some other sexually transmitted infections. So today, let's talk about what happens next, medically, emotionally, and practically. First of all, you're not alone. Globally, over 3.7 billion people under the age of 50, or approximately 66.6% of the world's population, have HSV1, the type that often causes cold sores. This represents a significant number of people. Another estimated 500 million, representing 13% of the global population below 50 years of age, have HSV2, which is usually genital. Most don't even know they have it. So when we say herpes, people mainly think about the genital infection, but know that cold sores are also herpes, although they are caused primarily by a different strain, which is HSV1. So if you're feeling ashamed or you feel like you're somehow dirty, which is a common feeling sometimes promoted by public perception and stigma around here, please hear me out. Herpes isn't a moral failure. It's a virus and we can manage it. The first step is understanding which kind you have. So the first one is HSV1, which often causes cold sores, also called oral herpes, which presents as painful vesicles on the lips and mouth. They can ulcerate and then crust over. And note that sometimes it can affect your genitals also. The other strain is HSV2, and this is more likely to cause genital outbreaks, those painful vesicles and ulcers on your genitals, perineum, buttocks, and even upper thighs. So if you've been told you have herpes, you might have been diagnosed based on a swab of a sore or a blood test. Either way, your doctor should have walked you through the entire process. So what does an outbreak look and feel like? These infections usually have a variety of symptoms which can differ depending on the site of the infection and whether the outbreak is happening for the first time or if it's a recurrent episode. The first outbreak is usually the worst and more severe than recurrent infections. You may have painful blisters or ulcers that start with redness, and this can progress to blisters, eventually forming ulcers that crust over. You could also have burning, itching, or even flu-like symptoms that could include fever, fatigue, headaches, muscle aches, and swollen glands or lymph nodes. Recurrent infections, on the other hand, are generally milder and shorter in duration, with symptoms localized like tingling or pain in the area where the rash will appear. One could also experience shedding of the virus from the mucosa or skin surfaces without symptoms, and this can contribute to transmission. These recurrent outbreaks typically last 5 to 10 days. After a primary infection, that virus will hide out in your nerves. It can then reappear later, often triggered by, stress, illness, or prolonged sun exposure. But here's the good news. We have medications that work. Your doctor could prescribe medications like acyclovir, valacyclovir, and famciclovir, which can help shorten outbreaks and lower transmission risk. There are some other medications that are topical that could also help. You can take this medication as needed during outbreaks, or in some cases, your doctor could prescribe them daily. And we call this suppressive therapy, which is particularly beneficial for those that have frequent episodes or frequent recurrences. It reduces the frequency of your outbreaks, lowers your chances of passing it to a partner, and overall improves your quality of life. Also, please do not forget to use barrier contraceptives like condoms, avoiding sex during outbreaks, and learning your body's signals, because you might be able to tell if you're about to have an outbreak. You could also take over-the-counter pain medication and sit in warm sitz baths to help with symptoms, especially if it's in the genital region. Now, can you date once diagnosed with herpes, and should you tell your partner? So this is where most people get nervous. The answer is yes. You should always tell a partner, and I'll drop a full video on how to do that soon, but here's what I'll say right now. The right person will not run away. In fact, you'll be surprised how many people either already have herpes, whether it's HSV1 or 2, or they are educated enough not to judge you for it. Remember that honesty, protection, and medication in combination make it very low risk. So, to end this video, having herpes may feel like the end of the world, but it's not. I have patients that live relatively normal lives with this diagnosis. You can still date, get married, have kids, and live a normal life. And with time, this will just become a small part of your story. So, if you're watching this and you're feeling overwhelmed, know that you'll be okay. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. I'm Dr. Emmanuel Aguh, the Whizdoc. I've got your back, and I will see you in the next one.